So right off the bat, I want to say that these headphones are the first pair of planar magnetic headphones I have ever tested. And while I do have some experience with open back headphones like the Audio-Technica AD700X and Philips' own SHP9500, both of which provided me a brand new experience that closed back headphones simply don't really deliver on. However, I decided to explore high-end audio solutions, at least higher end than what I'm used to, within reason. And that includes these headphones right here that I'm wearing for this review. The pair that I've been using for long enough to totally fall in love. Now, with that said, introducing the Hifiman Sundara, this review will come from the perspective of someone that does video editing, somebody that does streaming, somebody that does audio monitoring, gaming, and absolutely loves listening to music, especially metal. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Before we continue, don't forget that I have a Twitch channel that you can go ahead and follow me on for live microphone reviews and much more than that. But you're also going to find my Instagram and a link to the Tech Summit Discord in the description. So come join the community because it is a pretty cool one. We've also opened up a Patreon as of late where if you join, you'll be automatically entered to win one tech gadget every month in our exclusive giveaways. Details to that are going to be down below. Don't forget to check out the description for everything. Now let's get right into the video. Now let's begin with an unboxing. It does come in this beautiful black box that houses some instructions and warranty information, but you will also find the headphones themselves very nicely padded in the box, as well as the cable, and it is going to be a short and sweet unboxing, but it is pretty magical nonetheless. I haven't seen anything like it so far. The exterior design consists of metal. And if you ask me, I think that it is built very well, and I say this because there are opposing thoughts on the build quality of these Sundaras. It is built entirely out of metal, and that goes for the beautifully machined metal frame, metal grid, and the tilting mechanism is all metal as well. The hinge is all metal, and the extension piece to resize these or to expand these to fit your ideal head shape and size is also composed of metal. This is a nicely weighed but still pretty lightweight set of cans, and it does feel pretty premium in my opinion at least, and I love putting these on since just holding it feels like you're holding a beautifully machined piece of metal, and it's just very premium. And I think that they did a wonderful job with the build and the design of these headphones, which is very new to me. This is also a pretty big pair of headphones, so these will look pretty big on your head. You can use these with your phone portably if you want, but be aware of what you'd be carrying around with you. This is one of many reasons why I would actually consider these to be more so of a stay-at-home pair, and I wouldn't particularly travel with these, especially since they don't fold or anything like that, but that's not really what they're meant for, so either way probably doesn't matter. However, I am loving the experience so far, and I've been using these for about 1 month now. So when it comes to comfort, these are pretty good as well. The ear cuffs have a lot of padding and are very comfortable to use for long periods of time. Now the padding feels soft, and on my ears they don't apply a lot of pressure, but the clamping force on these is still there. These will stay on my head very easily and don't really come off just by moving around a little bit or anything like that. Like, it is pretty decent, and I can wear these for long periods of time, no problem. However, I thought that I would hate that empty piece of leather that's on the headband, but it actually doesn't bother me so much. I have seen these on headphones in the past, but I've always looked down on it since it just looks cheap. And I actually find these headphones to be very comfortable to wear in every regard. However, in a warmer environment, it definitely gets a little bit sweaty around there, but not by much. So when it comes to specifications, these are a planar magnetic open back pair of headphones with an impedance of 370 ohms and sensitivity of 94 decibels. These headphones should not take much to run in general, but from my experience, certainly benefits from having an extra help, and I'll get into that with this next segment coming right up. And now I'm going to be running 3 tests with these, and each one is also going to be benefiting from an additional amp. I will be doing these tests first on my GoXLR only, and then with my GoXLR paired with my Sennheiser GSX 1200 Pro amplifier. So let's go ahead and begin with the music listening test with just the GoXLR. So right off the bat, the GoXLR can definitely run these, but I have to run them at max volume in order to get a comfortable listening experience, and that is the case for just about doing everything on these, minus audio monitoring when I'm speaking into my microphone or anything like that, but more on that a little bit later. later. So when it comes to music, you do get a very crisp and I dare say analytical sound as well. Like, it does have a pretty good high end, and I would say that that's probably where most of the emphasis for the EQ on these is at. It's not one that is bass heavy by any means, and to some it might even seem like it does lack in that bass department. However, with proper EQ, you can get a lot of bass out of these, no doubt. But literally every genre of music is going to be very enjoyable with these, and let me give you some examples of what it feels like to listen to different genres. So when it comes to metal, you get a very good sound and audio separation is there, but it isn't as open of a soundstage as I would like. In fact, these sound like an open back pair to the trained ear, but I can see might not actually feel the difference between using these and a flat closed back pair instead. And I know that a lot of people might actually find that to be kind of preposterous of me to say, but I can see how people who maybe aren't so trained in listening to these patterns might not really see much of a difference in the soundstage, because it's just a bit too narrow. However, hip-hop, metal, orchestral, electronic, acoustic music, it all sounds astounding with these, especially if you're detail-oriented. These have a strong response towards the high end, as I mentioned just a little bit earlier, so occasionally you will hear very strong and crisp response to the higher frequencies when you're listening to music, almost like a very quick jump or spike to emphasize it, and then drop right back down. And it is especially noticeable when it comes to listening to orchestral due to those strong violins going rampant. But for the most part, it does have a pretty neutral sound signature. However, there is that bump in the highs that is worth keeping into consideration. I really like these as they are, but they certainly are not perfect, for me at least. And since I wanted a little bit more flexibility, I actually decided to go ahead and buy an amp for my GoXLR, and I opted for the Sennheiser GSX 1200 Pro, which is a gaming amp and probably isn't really the best choice for my purposes, but they get the job done and they do offer an improvement in some aspects. They do help in opening the soundstage a little bit more, and that is going to be especially the case with the surround sound activated, but we won't talk about that until the gaming section. This amplifier only adds a little bit more power to the GoXLR, which then applies it back to the headphones, which means that it does make these more usable. You do have more volume to mess around with. It is just more flexible when you have a separate amp to go along with it as well. And you can get a little bit more volume out of it, but with that additional help, you do get to take advantage of being able to hear even more details from these headphones. However, I must say that when it comes to music in general, this is already an amazing pair, and the best one that I have used, but I would like to test out other planar magnetic headphones as well, because I do find the concept of them incredibly interesting, and I would just like to broaden my horizons in that regard so that I can also offer more fair comparisons in the future. And now let's get into the actual gaming performance aspect here. Now, are these going to be great for gaming? Well, firstly, you shouldn't be investing in headphones like these for gaming, but if you already want this pair or have it for other purposes, then I think that you will be very happy with this pair. You don't get surround sound with these, obviously, but it is quite good. And if you're into RPGs, for example, then you will enjoy the sound quality that usually comes with the more orchestral soundtracks that usually come with these games like Final Fantasy 15, for instance. There's going to have a ton of those, and the audio separation isn't really going to be the focus here per se, but I do wish that these had a wider soundstage for gaming. Still, I do still find myself missing that. On their own, they sound great in stereo for gamers, but definitely wouldn't recommend it as is for gaming. But I do use the Sennheiser GSX 1200 Pro, which allows me to turn these into a surround pair. And that's when the soundstage really opens up and makes gaming with these an absolutely fantastic experience. Like, it makes these, like, it pretty much turns these into like a very flat pair of headphones that just has a very, very wide soundstage because of that surround sound effect that you get with it. Like, it honestly does feel like magic, and it is so damn good for gaming. But it isn't something that I would recommend most gamers do, because since there are still great gaming experiences to be had for much less, and that's really going to be my perspective on that. However, if you do have a setup like this, then Jesus Christ, you're going to have an amazing time with these. And then when it comes to using these for audio monitoring, this is simply not really the best pair to use since it's not a completely flat sound, and open back headphones just aren't really very good for editing in my opinion. And I would argue that open back is more enjoyment based and closed back is just more so for work, though it does depend on the headphones. Obviously, Beats are closed back, but you're not going to want to use those for video editing by any means. But this is still just going to be a very generalized idea of what I have for it. Anyway, I think that you can edit just fine with a pair like this because you're still getting that analytical sound that makes these great for accuracy. But when it comes to editing, you're usually just better off using a closed back because it won't really let much noise from the outside in to color the audio that you're monitoring or that you're listening to at that time, which is going to be pretty important to note if you wanted to get these as audio monitors. But I'm pretty sure that most people that are aware of these wouldn't get these specifically to monitor audio anyway. So these are going to be great in a low noise environment. And these are the headphones that I personally use for editing and all of my purposes at this point. But I would look into a different pair for work purposes. And now I would just like to quickly touch on some of my complaints here, which hopefully should bring light to some things that could improve about these moving forward. So the hinge scares me a little since it is all metal and it scratches every time that you expand it. It's almost like it's grinding against itself, and I just really don't like that. Luckily, I really don't need to deal with this because, I mean, I do have a small head, I guess, so the default size is just fine. However, for others, you know, with differently sized heads, it could be a bit of an issue for them since it will constantly have to deal with the grinding of the metal against metal that comes from the hinge. And I do wish that the included cable was longer, but I suppose that you could always get your own cables, which is going to be the beauty of this pair. And now the soundstage is going to be relatively narrow here for an open back, and this was pretty unexpected and somewhat disappointing as well. It feels more like a closed back with drawbacks of an open back where it leaks a lot of noise out. I would like a future iteration with maybe just a little bit more of an open soundstage for their open backs, and I do think that it is kind of a shame, but I have made it work for myself nonetheless. And again, I really do love the sound on these. I would just like a more open soundstage. Also, I noticed that the static screeching that you get when you put these near your microphone by accident is incredibly strong. Stronger than on any other pair that I have tested so far, which I do wish could be helped in some way. Like, besides me pushing the microphone away, if I know that I'm going to have to rotate my head around. It's just not going to be a very optimal thing to do. It's normal for this to happen with different pairs of headphones, but these have an especially strong screeching sound when this happens, and your audience is not going to like it if they end up hearing it because it's going to hurt their ears, and it's going to destroy your ears as well. So yeah, I do wish that could be helped in some regard. So in conclusion, this is my first pair of planar magnetic headphones, and I do hope that I did a decent job at reviewing these, considering that it is my first time. And I think that this pair is very good for many purposes, but when it comes to music, these are especially great in that department. They sound really good as they are, and all of these tests were done without any EQ, for the exception of the surround effect that I added for the gaming test, which was already detailed when I talked about that. So these headphones are going to be built really well, in my opinion at least. They're very comfortable, they're pretty lightweight yet feel pretty premium as well, and sound really good. I haven't gone through the recommended 250 hours of burn-in with these that you're going to find on the instructions, because if I had waited that long, then, you know, this review would have taken much longer to make, because I'm simply, 250 hours, that's a lot. However, as they are, they do sound fantastic. I love them as a higher end pair of headphones for my own purposes, but I wouldn't recommend it to people just looking for a simple upgrade, because this requires more than just simple hardware or simple equipment to really get the most out of these headphones. And if you're paying these much for headphones, then you're going to want to make the most out of them. So with that said, if you were already in the market for these, then I think you're really going to like them. So yeah, strongly recommended. And if you're interested in getting these headphones, along with any of the other equipment that I use in order to power this, then I'm going to be leaving links to all of that down in the description, which are going to be affiliated. So if you end up using any of my links, then I am going to appreciate that quite a bit, since we are going to get a small kickback that does help us make more reviews just like this. There's also going to be ABUNDA, which is going to be a great service for helping you finance any of these things, and that's going to make it super easy for you because you don't need a credit card of your own. And it is just going to be very simple and easygoing financing, so I strongly recommend it. Links to all of that are going to be down below, of course, and there's Luster if you need a shopping companion for helping you find discounts and sales across the web. It is going to be a great tool for just that. Any of these links will be helping us out quite a bit, but also they can bring a lot of benefit to you, so I recommend that you go ahead and check them out. And I would also like to give a very special thanks to our patrons here, which are going to be tier 3 and $10 tier patrons. So these are going to be Omar and Saad Al-Wazel. Thank you so much for all of your support. Your support really does go a long way. And now we're going to go ahead and move on to the rest of our patrons, which are going to be the tier 2s, the $5 tier. So here we go. And this is super important. I would just like to give a very special thanks to all of our patrons, which are going to be listed right here on the screen. Again, a massive thanks to you all for supporting us to help us create the kind of content that we bring to you on a day-to-day basis. And thank you so much for supporting the Tech Summit podcast as well. And just remember that if you would like to be a part of this community too, and then do make sure to check out the links to our Patreon, where you don't only get bonus episodes of our podcast, but you also get automatically entered into one of our monthly giveaways of a tech product that we have reviewed that is of at least $50 in value or higher. So links to that down below. And don't forget about the rest of my social media, which is going to be essentially my Instagram, my Twitch, and there's also going to be my Patreon. But yeah, you already know about that. So with that said, this has been Francisco from Tech Summit. Thank you for watching, and I will be seeing you all later. Enjoy.